It's on.
All right. Check baby, 1, 2, 3, 4. Hello. Welcome to the future of the future economy. I am Stefanie Monge, the editor at Silicon Prairie News, and today we are going to be talking about Omaha's future as the AI city. Omaha already has the servers, the fiber, the infrastructure powering the next wave of innovation. But could Omaha brand itself as the AI city? Today, we'll explore how the region's technological backbone, including our AI-ready infrastructure, can drive business attraction, job growth, and investment. We'll examine the competitive advantages that are already in place, from a skilled workforce pipeline to a central U.S. location, and what it would take for Omaha to fully seize the AI moment. So before we start, I'm just gonna let each panelist for 30 seconds tell you who they are. Go ahead.
I'm Ernie Goss. I'm professor of economics here at Creighton University in beautiful downtown Omaha, Nebraska. So thanks for having me here today.
I'm Ken Moreano. I'm the president and CEO of Scott Data. We're a data center in the Exarban area. And 2 years ago, we launched into deploying our own AI infrastructure, so similar to the likes of an AWS or a Google. So we have our own private enterprise NVIDIA chips and all the components that support that.
You got to save them, keep them wanting for more, you know? Yeah. My name's Alec, Gorynski. I serve as the Senior Vice President for Economic Development for the Greater Omaha Chamber and the Greater Omaha Economic Development Partnership, which is an 8-county, 2-state kind of collaborative approach to regional economic development on behalf of the Greater Omaha region.
Okay, so this first question, Ken, I would like to start with you. What specific assets does Omaha currently have that position us to even be competitive as an AI city?
So this will be a bit of a commercial for our shop, but I will start with, the history of telecommunications, major corridor, strategic command, probably, chamber speak as far as a thriving, engaged business community. Our perspective, we opened our data center in 2006. We serve strategic command, so we have a very robust, secure operation. And we happen to be positioned from a renovation standpoint to have quite a bit of power and cooling years ago. So May of 23, we launched into what I alluded to, our own AI infrastructure. So we have a private, secure, auditable NVIDIA chip-based infrastructure, which I think still leads the industry from a data center, co-locations, multi-tenant data center. So we have banks, hospitals, a number of organizations, large and small, publicly traded, privately held, concentration in the Midwest, but some from either coast. So those are our customers. So we have a multi-tenant, secure offering. And we've been told, and we are now recognizing that is a unique aspect and asset in the community.
Alec, from the Chamber's perspective, is there anything that you would want to add?
Sure. I just want to underscore how critical and how big of an opportunity this is. In economic development, we talk about in terms of what economic opportunities are and where the clusters might find themselves. They tend to organize around really strong anchors, really strong assets in a region. So think about the defense industry. We've got Offutt Air Force Base and all the missions that are there. Think about the healthcare technology and the med tech space, because of its adjacency to UNMC and everything that's happening there. We have a really strong agriculture ecosystem here, not directly related to farming, not farming specifically, but rather inputs, equipment manufacturing, value-add ag, all of those things because of our adjacency here. We have an adjacency here because of Scott Data, something that no one else has to offer, and Ken will continue to tell his story throughout this. And so when we learned about, kind of what they've been investing in, and he'll continue to tell that story, we really grabbed onto that because of the adjacency, something unique that we have that is going to lend itself to our ability to support integration into existing companies, into our existing industries, as well as recruitment of companies that need to lean on something like that. In addition to that, of course, we have all the other things that we use, the assets and the attributes about our community that we use to sell our community to other places, be it our workforce, the cost of doing business, the type of talent we have, the type of skill development that we have in place. All of those things exist here in this space, but there is a really strong element here as it relates to Scott Data.
And Ernie, did you want to add something?
As I said, I'm an academic economist, and you review papers. And when we're sent papers, we're told our job is to tell you what's wrong with it. So I'm here to say, be a little critical of. I hope so. Hope it's fair. And I was in the second inning of AI back in 1992. I was with NASA before I came to Creighton, and I worked in neural networks. Okay, and that's the infancy. You can go to Google Scholar and look up what I published. It's not. It doesn't fit in today. It's 1991 and 2, so you can imagine. But that aside, I came to Omaha my family and I came to Omaha in 1992. I've been with Creighton ever since. And I do consulting as well as teaching economics. And the problem, I think one of the problems we don't recognize, and now I use ChatGPT, by the way, and I have the full-blown version, so $200 a month is well worth it. Anyway, so I think it's a great tool if you recognize the problems with it. And one of the problems is overlearning, and that was true back in 1991 and 92 when I used neural networks, again, a form of AI. And overlearning is one of the real problems. In other words, you work really great on old data but not so well on new data. For example, if you do evaluating somebody for a loan and you have this program that tells you whether they're a good bet or not a good bet. And we worked in actually predicting death in the ICU unit, which is not, and that we did some of that here in Omaha. But anyway, overlearning is a problem with it. And also the discrimination. The models will have a tendency to discriminate if you have a track record of certain individuals or certain, like in payoffs, that some individuals perhaps are not good. They have certain characteristics, age or something.
And we will talk about some of the issues related to
Right.
equity. But in terms of infrastructure for Omaha or assets, is there anything else you wanted to add?
Oh, absolutely. I just worked on a project, and don't get ruffled here, but it was the company wanted to move here, and they couldn't. And I came to, in working with economic development, I was told, well, we don't need data centers because they don't provide enough jobs. And I'm like, well, yes, but they provide a heck of a lot of property taxes. They also have high-paid jobs. We still don't need them. And this is a person high in the hierarchy of Nebraska's economic development. So there is some resistance, and the resistance is a lot of other resistance is power. You have public power here, and there's resistance by our power company to certain things like battery storage. What about battery storage of electricity? Well, you'll find that this company was going to go before the Power Review Board, and to this date, I don't think they've gone before the Power Review Board to get permission to have battery storage of electricity, because as you know, Nebraska has a lot of renewable energy, and renewable energy tends to be volatile in terms of reliability. Well, we need storage. You need storage capacity, battery. Well, there's...
Actually, that goes into my next question.
Okay, that's my signal to stop.
Okay.
Sorry, I do.
That really leads into the next topic
Okay,
I want to talk
okay.
about specifically is energy and power constraints. I mean, what is happening right now in Omaha related to that or this area? Like, how can we overcome those constraints?
The reality is that we do have energy constraints for several reasons. First off, OPPD, who serves the majority of our territory, has more than enough energy to serve everybody here and several of the new opportunities. But there is a huge increase in the electrification of manufacturing in particular, and so that doesn't eliminate our opportunities, but it just makes them more challenging because companies are looking for speed to market. What we found with Scott Data in particular, and because of an existing piece of infrastructure already and because of their story, the ability to leverage their platform is enhanced by their early investments in energy, which is kind of teeing Ken up here.
So I mentioned we had Stratcom as our first customer, 150 people, compute, storage, a number of classified activities. They vacated after 5 years. The military can do that. They had a new commander, said that we're going to the base. I convinced Mr. Scott, our benefactor, my mentor, to repurpose the data center and add 20 megawatts of power. By today's standards, that's very small, but we had that in 2011. So we can move very quickly in 2023 to deploy. So we don't have a power constraint, but I'm only speaking from my small corner of the world. And we can deploy a lot of infrastructure supporting a lot of different organizations. And something I want to touch on earlier, the industries Alec mentioned, the ones that are like insurance, ag, energy, government, high compliant, tend to resonate with our offering because we can scale, and also we have a history of security, privacy, and you can audit all of that. We're not training a model. Different than the public models like ChatGPT and others and AWS, you can't unread a book. When your data is out there, it's out there, right? So we take very sensitive and high responsibility around privacy and security. But from a power perspective, we've had it, so we don't really have the challenges. We're in a, preferred and fortunate position.
Ernie,
Okay, let me give you
do you want to say something about power?
Yeah, let me give you statistics. In 2014, Nebraska had share of data center jobs, had 1.7% of data center jobs in 2014. 10 years later, it went from 1.7% to 0.4%, 0.4, less than 1%. So the direction has been definitely downward in terms of Nebraska's growth in data center jobs. And I'll point to, maybe my team members here disagree, but power is one of the areas. And what this, the consult, and I have to say I had a vested interest, we were working on a consulting project about what battery storage would do for data centers. Well, the prominent, one company in Nebraska resists it, and the other one accepts battery storage. So again, there is resistance in OPPD to battery storage, at least now this is 6 months ago. It may not be the case today, I don't know.
Ernie, so one question, you mentioned a company that you were talking to, and they said they couldn't move to Omaha because it sounds like the lack of infrastructure, or is that, am I?
No, they don't get permission. They have to have,
Okay.
they have to go before the Power Review Board. The Power Review Board then, and OPPD is resisting.
Okay, got it.
They're testifying against the company to provide battery storage. Now, there may well be good reasons. I don't know. I mean, battery storage, I don't know much about it beyond what I've just said. But there is a resistance to battery storage, and it is certainly the case that Nebraska and Iowa, particularly Iowa, depends more heavily on renewable fuel, and renewable fuels such as, of course, wind and solar. Thus, you have to have some methodology of storage or getting power from another source, and so, such as the Southwest Power Pool. But anyway.
Okay. So, I mean, thinking about ways that we could be incentivizing companies to come to Omaha or start in Omaha, are there ways to leverage tax incentives or subsidies or other mechanisms that you could point to help to drive that AI-driven growth in our local economy?
Well, in the panel, I was just on a panel maybe 3 or 4 months ago, and the economic development individuals on that same panel were resistant to that because they thought the stated idea was the data centers don't provide enough jobs. So if you're measuring it by jobs, it's not something you're going to see a lot of jobs. However, they're high-paid jobs, and the two highest property tax payers in the Sarpy County, 2 of the top 3 are data centers. So these data centers provide a lot of support. Now again,
I would say beyond data centers. You know, Alec and I have talked about other companies who are wanting to leverage AI in their growth and being prepared to be able to do that by utilizing like infrastructure assets that already exist in Omaha. Alec,
Sure.
What say you?
Sure. And I do think, you know, these are both important topics. I don't think that they're necessarily the same. Well, no, they are the same. They're definitely in the same ball field. But, you know, there is the data center, you know, kind of AI infrastructure investments that are happening across the country and everywhere, and Omaha is home to several of those. And then there's leveraging the assets we have in order to integrate the adoption of artificial intelligence and automation as well into existing industries. And so, and I'll get to the incentive question in just here in a second, because I'll tackle it now, actually. So we do, when it comes to recruitment, there are some existing tools that we have in place in the state of Nebraska that can be leveraged in order to recruit existing companies here. We think there's an opportunity to enhance some of these incentives in order to support the R&D or the integration or the adoption of artificial intelligence and AI by existing companies and existing industries that are here already. The means by which we're trying to support the integration of this has been in partnership with Ken and Scott Data. First and foremost starts with literacy, AI literacy, and you know, what does this mean for you? You know, oftentimes companies or employees off the side of their desks, like many of us, are using ChatGPT or whatever the case may be. But truly, how do you think about treating AI itself as a utility and a core operating system in order to support the more efficient operation of your business and a higher yield for your company overall. From literacy, which can take several different forms, we're off connecting with companies constantly, and so we're trying to bring up this topic of AI regularly. And then when we identify those companies, we throw them over the fence, so to speak, to Scott Data over here, who can then start to work with them more specifically on AI use cases within their specific companies. And that's where we've really started. So as it relates to supporting their actual adoption and any investments that they may be making, there is a chance for additional incentives there. But the other opportunity we see here, and we've seen, success record 1 of 1, but one company so far has seen what Scott Data has to offer and has been lured by some of those tools and some of those incentives to move their business from Oklahoma here to operate within the Omaha ecosystem, in part because of the Scott Data infrastructure, and incentives played a small role in that.
I don't recall the question. I'm a little slow. I apologize, but I'm just going to give a couple
incentives.
of comments, if I may.
Yeah, or yes, go for it.
So
Whatever
absolutely,
you'd like.
power storage, critical issue. Transmission lines, power availability. If you look at the anticipated growth of data center in our country, we don't have nearly the power as a nation to support that. So there's a big move around what's called behind the meter. So independent power, essentially, that's supporting data centers without taxing the grid. And there are concepts around this. Seems to me, and like the AI technology, none of it's standard. It's all academic. It changes daily. Models are changing. Chips are changing. That's very confusing, a bit convoluted. But there's no better time, I believe, of innovation than happening now. So I think we'll see a change in legislation and regulatory and adoption of alternatives like battery storage and fuel sources. That we really don't have a choice as a state and probably a country. But things are changing so rapidly that innovation, maybe the dust settles in the next 3 to 5 years, but being in the industry, living this every day, living AI every day, for the last probably, 28 months now, we see changes in power, cooling at the server level, at the rack level where these things are housed, all the way through the building, the infrastructure, into communities. So I think it's one of those stay tuned, but I totally agree with Dr. Goss. Like the alternative power sources and storing that is a critical issue. On the incentives, that's not my bucket, but we can speak to adoption from the standpoint of industries that are here, and I agree with literacy, exposure, and just context. Mm-hmm. And just a side comment, if I may. Right now, to my knowledge, there are still only 3 standards in artificial intelligence, and not original artificial intelligence, but today. As we've dealt with data scientists, we've had the railroad in our shop, and people are brilliant, well-read, esteemed. But when we talk about Gen AI, LLMs, they say, yeah, this is new. It's just different. The tech is new. The compute that's available is new. But the standards we've seen that OpenAI has created, and other than that, there aren't any, which is model context protocol, agent to agent, how they communicate with each other, model to model. Other than that, there's no cybersecurity standard, there's no compute standard, there's no IEEE for AI. So this is the Wild West with massive adoption, mainly on the consumer side, laggards industry, and a lot of learning as we go, which rolls also into another maybe topic on talent and workforce development.
But now Alec was speaking, I think, toward recruiting, manufacturing, and the users. What I'm speaking of is the users are not going to come here if you don't have the power, ability to serve them. And my concern is that we're getting resistance to expansion in data centers. Not the incentives for the other side are quite good. And Alec may have been on that Zoom that I was on, and I raised this issue, and it was like nothing was said. I mean, Nebraska, or at least Omaha, is resistant to data centers, in my judgment. And you can't have big users, AI, if you don't have the power, you don't have the electricity. And it's well known across the nation, yet we see Omaha resistance to expansion of data centers because of the lack of power.
Just a comment, if I may. So if you look at Northern Virginia, that hits the nail on the head for what you're describing, right?
About to do some reporting with our partners technically about the data center alley and Loudoun County in Northern Virginia.
Yeah, land and power. They're the driver. However, there's another side of it. As a small operator, especially in today's standards, only 20 megawatts, we deal with many Fortune 500 companies. And they walk in the door saying, well, we need 50 GPUs or 100 GPUs. And then we actually get involved in their business. They need 2 or 4. the workloads that they look at are very, very small, especially when you look at the infrastructure they're currently using and then they move to ours. Ours is far greater in capability and capacity than they're accustomed to. So when we actually look at supporting well over 3,000 GPU chips in our building without changing anything, over 100 cabinets of our design, that's well beyond. We've talked to 300 different companies. We have 200 active in our pipeline, highly regulated industries primarily. So to me, it's curious, the gigawatt campuses and the massive builds, because I don't personally believe that's the future. I believe taking AI to the enterprise, to where the data sits, is the future of AI. In other words, enterprise never took the most sensitive data. If you think about where you work, did you take your most sensitive private information to a public cloud? High probability not. But now we have the technology to mine that data, and like Dr. Goss said, looking back is way more powerful than looking forward. There's a company in this town, brilliant people, 2 people in a many thousand employee company, but there are 2 that have figured that out. They're reconstituting the business. AI is the actual operating business system for the business. C-suite has endorsed it. They're going to spin off 3 products, 2 companies that aren't at all like their old company. And they're very successful, but they have a different view now, and they can mine historical data, and that's with not a lot of GPUs. They don't need all of the horsepower. So I question these massive builds in the not-too-distant future because, again, taking the AI to where the data sits, either a multi-tenant data center like ours or a building that is an enterprise building, a headquarters of some company that happens to have a data center in it, I believe that's the future. So it does beg the question around power availability, but no question, hyperscalers, large outfits, we're very small. We're a small player. Most of them are 100 megawatts and larger. They kind of chuckle at us, like we're not a serious organization, but we have very serious businesses that are durable and serious about protecting their data and mining it, leveraging AI. So I think there's a balance here around, absolutely, if we're going to attract big operators and builds, you got to have the power and the land. But I don't know that that's the long-standing, sustainable approach.
All right, can we shift gears to talk about workforce a little bit here? Okay, so how have you seen local universities, community colleges, employers working together to try to shore up that pipeline of skilled workforce ready to move into this future economy in Omaha or Nebraska?
Well, one of the leaders is Creighton, and some of the work that they're doing around, when I think about AI, there's the work that's being done on the systems themselves, but then there's also the work that's being done in order to maximize the potential of artificial intelligence within your company. And so those are 2 different things. And what I've understood from the few conversations I've had with folks here at Creighton University, particularly in their financial services and their fintech degree, which Dr. Goss would be better equipped to speak to than I am, it's really about how do you support the integration, the adoption of AI, and the use cases of AI within those industries, as opposed to the computing side of things and the systems engineering side of things. So that's been really leading edge. UNO obviously has a new AI bachelor degree program. They're offering several micro-credentials in AI, both on the system side of things as well as on the, how do we integrate this? How do we practice this as a business? Because that literacy, I think, is very fundamental in addition to the systems, the technology piece of it. So that's what we're seeing right now. Even Metro Community College has been offering some micro-credentials on that kind of offering. So that's what we've observed so far is in the practice of business, how is AI integrated within that business, and how are we educating people on how to practice AI within their companies? But Creighton is one of the leading ones on there. And you also have a new initiative as well.
Well, as far as collaboration, I'm an economist, and I don't even like to play doubles tennis, let alone collaborate. So anyway, no, but I think, Stefanie, it stands well. Omaha stands well there. And I think we need to really consider, and thank you, Alec, for pointing out at Creighton, I think we, in my department, moving ahead. We have some very good programs and such. But I think we sometimes don't mention Metro Community College. Metro Community College can really do some great things and expand the labor force that we really need and can be more flexible. Universities are not as flexible as Metro, a community college, where you have training programs, you can meet. So that's where I think Omaha stands quite well in that regard. And I think we do well on the other side, but I think, again, the community colleges.
Just to give a comment on Metro as well as the university system, Nebraska system, but also Creighton. So our benefactor, Walter Scott Jr., the Susanna Walter Scott Foundation uses charitable dollars, revenue we generate, for philanthropic giving. My exposure historically has been at Metro, Southeast Community College, and the trades, which are critical. We have mechanical, electrical, plumbing people in our operation that help make sure everything stays on. And then we have the data science, computer science, and quite frankly, the systems engineering mentality and that perspective is what we have seen being critical from an AI perspective. What we have built, the talent doesn't exist. We've had to grow from within. So the skills we've needed, we have people that we're hoping stay with us because they have unique know-how. We've built from the ground up our own design. We actually deviated from a known certified design from NVIDIA. They weren't happy. Eventually, they took selfies in front of our stuff, so that was kind of fun having them visit. But we have grown our own talent pool from the community. So highly capable, well-educated, high expectations for these young people. But we haven't been able to find the talent for what we need and what we're doing. That's not the mechanical electrical, though there's scarcity there. It's more from the technical data pipeline, data science, and orchestrating, for example, the NVIDIA software stack and in all the different components. So talent is very, very challenging. And then from the standpoint of use case development, we've had to learn that. As the overall majority of companies that we interviewed them, we used customer discovery. So before we built what we built, we had 70 CIOs we had interviewed. And they said, we will be ready. They fibbed. They were not ready. Like 2 were ready. So we've had to actually go up the stack, so to speak, and actually work on use case development and build strategy, not tech strategy, but corporate strategy for AI, and really start defining what are the early nuggets, what's an outcome, measure that, very focused, very intentional, to then replicate and grow. But that's been a whole new learning for our team and our organization.
The one thing I wanted to add about workforce is it's really hard to quantify what the workforce is here because it's so distributed across companies in so many different ways. And whether it's you're working on the technology itself or you're working on the application, oftentimes when we talk about industries where, through the BLS, you're able to easily quantify the number of occupations that exist within certain fields. And there's just no coding for that right now. So it's really impossible for us to put our finger exactly on the quantity of talent that we have in this field. We're not able to measure the actual volume of it or the actual density of that talent. So it is really hard to quantify what's available. But I think the thing that we can qualitatively see is some of the expressions of training and development that are taking place within our academic institutions. They're really, quite frankly, on the forefront of it, quite frankly, in the Midwest.
Yeah, and I failed to mention that we have a partnership with the College of Engineering in Lincoln. So we've allocated some of our AI compute in an AI makerspace. So to really instigate innovation, creativity.
Oh yeah, SPN just reported on that, I think yesterday.
Yeah, thanks for reporting on that. With the proper guardrails so that the innovators don't get too far out, but we've allocated infrastructure in support of the college to really create, instead of a physical makerspace, which they have at Kiewit Hall in Lincoln, an AI makerspace to really drive innovation, exposure, context, and then see where creativity takes it.
Okay, hold on.
Let me add
Okay.
an important point. The state line does not an economic border. We forget about Iowa Western Community College. I mean, we've got to think more about working with Iowa Western Community College and see that as an opportunity. Sorry.
Right. Oh, no, it's good. So actually, for 1 minute each, because we're almost at time, what would it take for Omaha to legitimately position itself as the AI city? What do you think?
Maybe.
All of you, each of you.
I don't think that's the goal we want to set. I think it would be better served by serving AI and moving in that direction. And having been in Omaha now for 30 years, I believe I can say pretty confidently that Omaha and Council Bluffs and the area, this region, will meet the challenge. I think it will. It has before, and it will in the future.
Okay, thank you. So, Ken and Alec, 1 minute.
I agree. The bar we set, I think, is unique to our capabilities, our strengths, and selfishly, to me, it's adoption and exposure and engagement. Not stretching for the largest return on investment, but being reasonable and leveraging the assets we already have. We're here. We're open for business. We're very collaborative. We want to be a partner, not a vendor. We have a history of doing that 30. I've been here 23, coming back after graduating from this institution. So I think it's the engagement, and the industry is leading that. I was asked that question. I had the opportunity. Alec helped me present to the board at the chamber, and I was asked that question, and so we'll get involved. Like, once you engage, you'll start seeing value. I don't know if it's leading the nation, but definitely can be an example for the nation.
Thank you.
I see this more as an opportunity, but also a risk. I'm concerned about, this will change our economy. We don't know exactly the manner in which it will change our economy or the full extent of it. And I think that we have several industries here that are susceptible to the way it will change our economy. So I view it as a risk, and I view it as the opportunity is to ensure that our companies are adopting this to protect their presence in the region and to protect all the value add that they offer to our region, up to and including employment. So to answer your question, I would agree with Ken. It's, to me, at this moment anyway, it's really about integration and adoption. And one thing that I saw, I don't remember if it was Pittsburgh or Philadelphia, had a large convening of all the CEOs in their economy, and each of them made an actual commitment and a financial commitment in order to adopt and integrate AI into their companies. So that was something to strive for.
Gentlemen, we are done with 15 seconds to spare. Thank you so much for sharing your insights today.
Thanks. Thank you, Stefanie. Thanks.